Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another brand new Mattel Jurassic World set. You can see this time we've got Wave 2 of the Dino Reveal figures. These have recently launched at Walmart with all of the Rebirth figures, but you can see these are not Rebirth releases. However, they do look pretty cool, and again, I like the first round of these, so I'm intrigued to see what species and everything we have this time around. I really quite like the packaging here that we have with the Dilophosaurus this time. Super cool image there of it. You can see the Dino Reveal logo, of course Jurassic World, and then, oh, here we go in the back. I guess we can see again which figures we have in this wave, so one of which is the Shringasaurus, which is very exciting because we have not had a new Shringasaurus since the first one. So let's go ahead, start popping these open, and we'll see who all we have inside. But actually, I guess we'll do this one by one, because if you look at the underside, this one is B. You can see that letter right there, B. That tells you that well, it'll tell you once I figure out who it is that's inside of it, but that one is different from this one, which you can see is C, and that would make that one A. So we'll begin, I guess, with A, and we'll see which one is in A. So in A, we can see which dinosaur we have when we pull this out. Let's see if I go up. It's the Dilophosaurus. So I can tell you that much straight out of the gate. I could feel the frill on the Dilophosaurus. So we now know who we have in the first one. I guess it makes sense for A to be the Dilophosaurus because, again, that's the one that we see on the packaging. But if we go ahead and reposition the legs here, take a closer look, of course the sculpt is going to be the same as the older Dilophosaurus. None of these sculpts, I believe, are new in this line. They're just fun, kind of like, you know, different type of figures from Mattel. But you can see, just like we had with the last round, we basically have like the skeleton of the dinosaur here. You can see the skulls kind of painted out here, but only on the upper side. And then as you move back into the body, well, I'm trying to open the frill, but I don't think it opens, which is really weird. I thought it was going to, but no, actually, I'm just like stretching it. The frill actually does not extend out, so that's very, very depressing for this figure. But you can see the rib cage as well as some of the bones in the leg, and that's about it. Other than that, it's just a really dark tone of color. Man, I cannot believe they did not articulate the frill. That is so crazy to me. So here is B. We will now know which figure we have in B, and I'm going to go ahead and say right now that it is the Shringasaurus because it sure feels like it. And I would be correct in that assessment, and we can see as far as the Shringasaurus goes, go ahead and readjust the legs on it. We again have the skull, but only on the upper side. The lower jaw just has like a dark tone, but it does look pretty cool like that. And then moving back, you can see the rib cage, and again the leg bone in the rear legs, and that's really about it as far as the Shringasaurus goes as well. But it does look super cool. Again, it's just such a bummer for these figures that once you actually change the color and reveal the figure, that you don't have this version anymore. It's neat to see these like that, so it would be cool if they were, you know, color changing, like you can change them back like you do with the captives, but unfortunately, no dice. Once it changes, it is changed forever. So if you want that version, don't change the color. And the final one, I think at this point we very clearly know who it is, just based off of what the back of the packaging said. But we'll go ahead and just break it open to reveal it anyway, and as you can see, we've got the Miragaia. And this one does look pretty cool as well, again with the skeleton phase occurring here. It does look pretty neat. I think all of them look super cool like this. Like, again, like I stated, I would love to be able to change them back to it, but I am very intrigued to actually see what the figures look like once the paint is removed here and we get the actual paintwork of the figure. But again, very cool looking for the Miragaia as well, and I think that as well is another species that we did not have previously outside of the original release, so it is fun to have a new version of this species as well. We can actually see a little bit potentially of the color kind of poking through right there where some of the darker coloration has been wiped away. So I'm going to go ahead and get some water in the packaging, and then we'll go ahead and reveal all of our figures. So we are going to go ahead and dip all of our figures in the water, and then they're going to start to change colors. We'll get each and every one back in here so they can all change colors. And as you can see, it doesn't take long for it to get super muddy looking in the water and the figures to start changing colors. So we'll give them just a little bit of time here, and we'll see how it looks when they are done. So we're going to begin pulling these guys back out. While that water is pretty hot, we can definitely see the Dilophosaurus is looking pretty good. We've also got to pull our Shringasaurus out here, which as well looks like it for the most part has already removed all of that original color. And of course the final one, which is the Miragaia as well. So here are our figures. You're probably going to see some water here and there on the review station, but they are now all recolored to the now standard colors of the figures, and they do look pretty cool. Again, honestly, I think overall, for the most part, they look quite neat. But I will say, one figure here is like one of the weirdest figures that Mattel has honestly ever produced, if you ask me, and that would be the Dilophosaurus. Now, this Dilophosaurus does have pretty much the usual kind of standard sculpt of the Dilophosaurus, like, you know, going back to the old school original Dilophosaurus. I would love to see Mattel actually release a new one, because I feel like with how good their sculpts have been, a new version of this dinosaur would be really cool. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm actually surprised we did not get one so far for Rebirth, because there is a very obviously new Dilophosaurus in Rebirth, and so far as what I can recall, we haven't actually had a new figure for it. But I would love to see a newly sculpted Dilophosaurus. But if you remember back, the original version of this Dilophosaurus had the mouth kind of open all the time because it had like venom and stuff that it was spitting, so there was no articulated jaw. They probably could have very easily added one, but actually just decided to give this figure a closed mouth look and no articulated jaw at all. So it just does not open the mouth, which is really weird, especially for a carnivore from Mattel. No articulated jaw is quite strange. And again, it gets even weirder when you move back to the frill, and the fact that you have the frill here and it does not articulate either. Like, it's just always stuck in this position. I feel like if they were going to go this route and not have an articulated frill, they just shouldn't have included a frill at all. Like, a frill-less Dilophosaurus would have been much better, but unfortunately we got whatever this is. It's just really weird. So it's a very strange version of the Dilophosaurus. As far as what we have going on this version compared to, you know, previously released versions, once you change the colors, you can see you have a brown, kind of like a darker variation of a brown, but not all that dark. For the primary body color, we have a green eye with a black pupil, and then you have a light brown for the lower jaw. That light brown moves down through the neck into the chest, but then disappears just a little ways into like the early part of the stomach region. You can see we do have that light tone, kind of a different shade, slightly, I would say slightly lighter, but we do have that light tone for the arms and hands. And then the actual frill itself, even though it doesn't actually extend out, does also have that same similar kind of light brown, maybe slightly different as far as the tone goes, and then a reddish tone that sort of patterns and just looks pretty cool as it moves through the light tone. And that's really about it. You don't see any of the other variation of color at all as you move through the figure. It is then just that brownish tone. As far as the articulation goes, it does actually have some neck articulation, which is at least kind of cool for this figure. You can swivel the neck and turn it, which is pretty neat, but now the arms are kind of in the way of the frill. It doesn't have the ability to go up and down, just basically swivel, and then of course you have arm articulation forward and back, leg articulation forward and back, and a swivel tail? Nope, no swivel tail. I thought it had one, but unfortunately, it does not. Then we've got the Miragaia, and this one actually almost has a similar look to what it did originally when you look at the head sculpt, because it still kind of has the color moving over it in almost like a skull-like fashion. But I think that's pretty neat, kind of giving it a little bit of like a war paint kind of a look. Of course, the sculpts of these figures are all the same as the older versions, so we don't really need to go over the sculpts. I should have mentioned that earlier when we went over the Dilophosaurus. But again, the Miragaia we have had in the past, but it is neat to have a new version of it, and the colors of this one are okay. Again, when it comes to these figures, they're very similar to the mainline releases, a little bit more basic, I would say. And one thing that is definitely quite basic is the actual paint application of the figures. Not that it's not basic enough already on some of the mainline figures, but you can see we again have that light tone moving over the head. We have an orangish eye with a black pupil, and then we ran randomly have a light tone there, that same light tone in the face, move back and kind of squiggle through the neck and disappear before we lead into the body. You can see the plates do not actually have any paintwork here in the neck, just the bluish tone of the primary body. As you move up here into the back, though, you do pick up kind of like a reddish brown sort of a tone, and that sort of patterns down into the side of the dinosaur, but it's very briefly on the figure, because then as you move into the tail, it is then gone. That color does overtake the plates and spikes and everything on the back of the dinosaur, but that's really about it, because as we move out into the tail, then you can see that we are back to that same bluish tone, and there's no coloration except for a little bit of the brown that didn't come off as you move out into the tail of the figure. You do also have those kind of shoulder spikes that are painted with a dark brown, though, so you do at least have that little bit of extra variation of color to it. And we do have articulation in the neck, but it's just the swivel. Doesn't seem to do much of anything else. Again, leg articulation forward and back. Same deal with the rear legs. Do we have a swivel in the tail? Okay, this time we do. So at least it has a little bit more articulation on that one. And then definitely my favorite of the three, the Shringasaurus, and I really actually quite like the colors of this one. It's too bad that they didn't update things like the teeth or anything on these figures. I would have really liked to have seen like an update to the mouth, because we now see much better looking teeth on these newer figures. Oddly enough, the Shringasaurus did get the articulated jaw, whereas the Dilophosaurus again did not. You can see the teeth are painted with a yellowish sort of a tone, like a light yellow. We've got the tongue painted with a pink inside the mouth in there. It also has a nice gloss coat, which is very impressive to see, because we actually have that even on the upper side of the inside of the mouth. Again, with how basic these figures usually are, that's pretty surprising. We have a dark gray here for the face as you move back, and that disappears pretty quickly. You also have a dark brown for those like horns on the top of the head of the Shringasaurus, and a light tone for the lower jaw. That light tone is only present on the lower jaw, though. As you move down, it's just completely gone after that. And then you move into the body, and again, we've got a nice greenish tone of color, and then we have some yellow that kind of picks up in patterns through very briefly, again ending in basically like the hip region, and then it's gone. There also appears to maybe be some of the paper towel that I was using to wipe this off stuck on the side of it. No, that's just like some kind of weird defect on the figure. But then you move back, and again, there's no other coloration, no painted nails, nothing like that on the rest of the figure. But I do think it looks really cool to see a green version of the Mattel Shringasaurus. There isn't any neck articulation on this one, though. So, like, we have jaw articulation on this, but didn't on the others. But on the others, we had neck articulation and don't on this. We do have leg articulation, though, forward and back, as far as all of the legs go, and a swivel tail. Yes, so we can swivel the tail. Even if it is useless articulation, it is still possible to do that. So again, it is a pretty cool figure. I'm really happy to see the Shringasaurus back, especially for anybody that may have missed the original release. You can still get a version of it now from Mattel, which is a huge plus, because, you know, many people I know wanted that one, and it wasn't around all that long. But that's really about it. I don't think we need to do comparisons or sizes or anything like that. These are very much so the same sculpts and everything as the original releases. They don't differ in size or anything, so I don't think we need to really go over anything past this point. So if you are interested in these, check your local Walmart. Again, that's where I found mine. Grab them if you want them. Remember the codes, and if you don't remember the codes, go back to the video and you'll see which figures are in which as far as the codes go. And grab whichever ones you want, and like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.